Hi, I'm Paul Marcel, and I wanted to do a quick review today of the Festool LS130 Linear Action Finish Sander. Now, this sander is, I guess, another one of those sanders that's a little bit low on the radar when it comes to Festool. There's always the Rotexes that take a lot of the glory. But this sander is actually one that I use pretty often when I'm doing anything that has a lot of rails and styles. It's a linear action only sander, so you wouldn't want to cross the grain with it. Just in a way, this is very much like you with a hand sanding block, just sanding linearly like you would when you're finishing, but it lets you get it done a little bit faster. So I tend to do it on rail and style work. I'll use the DTS 400 through most of the grits until I get it all done, and then I'll go one final pass. Say if I went up to 180 with the DTS 400, I'll hit it with 180 on the linear action, just to make sure that I've got all those scratch marks gone. Now, this sander isn't very aggressive. It's intended to be a finish sander. It does have a couple of unique features, one of which is that this base is changeable. Now, this base here is the standard base that comes with it. It actually takes the same paper as the RTS 400, so if you have the RTS 400, you can share abrasives between the two models, which is definitely handy. The way this bottom comes out is it's just spring-loaded on a couple of simple clips, so just press down and pop that off. Now, this base just has some simple little hooks on there that'll attach to the base, but what this allows you to do is, besides, of course, replace this one if you ding it up, is that they have a number of other profiles available. This one comes with the sander. It's a 90-degree base. This one comes with it as well, but this is the extra one. What this allows you to do is it would allow you to get into, say, a corner. So if I wanted to sand my fog tainers here, I would just put them up against the corner, and it would be sanding both portions of this corner. Now, that might be useful for certain corners, but what's more impressive is that there's a variety of these bases that are available that have different radii curves on them. So if you're cleaning out the insides of a cove, typically that becomes a very laborious hand sanding task. You can at least now incorporate this sander into the mix and get it done a little bit faster. Now, there is a more unusual base, and that would be this one here. I put blue tape on it because it's actually relatively sharp. It's a scraper that you can use. So, and of course, blue tape is supposed to come off very easily, but when you're on camera, it never will. So we'll just leave the little bit that's on. So it's just a very simple scraper. I mean, you can easily sharpen it. It comes fairly sharp, which is why I put the tape on it in the first place. But then you can pop that onto the base of the sander. I'm going to go ahead and do that, actually. And with the linear action, it's just going to be poking away. So you can use this to help lift anything that's stuck to your floor. It's not going to be as aggressive as some of the other tools, like the multi-master tools and that sort of thing, but it definitely does a pretty good job. Now, if you were using a heat gun to try removing, say, a finish like a varnish, this would be actually very good. With the wider spade and not quite as aggressive as, say, a multi-master, you'd be able to lift that varnish pretty easily. So that's one of the more unique bases for it. Although when it comes to sanding bases, there is one other one that's pretty unique. I do not have one, but I can explain it a little bit. Now, we've all had situations where we've had to make our own custom blocks for, like this is for some base molding that I had actually in my house, so I made this custom profile for myself for doing hand sanding. Now, that gets really old, I assure you, to go and sand all those by hand. So what Festool has is they have a base. It would look like this one here, but it has a large white block down here. And the intention is that you would take, say, very much the same way that you create one of your own blocks, you would take the material that you're creating the profile off of, you take the sandpaper, this one's actually kind of adhered now, but you would drape the sandpaper grit up, and then you would take that block with the sander, and you would just sand down until that white block has been abraded down to the point where it's an exact match of the profile with the sandpaper there. At that point there, you would use a small adhesive that comes with the kit, put it onto that base, and then you would take any of these papers and you'd put it on there, and now it's a profile match to that piece that you used to make the profile. So it would be a very quick operation to be even on site. If you had a couple of those blocks tossed in your van and you needed to do some sanding on some of the work that you're doing on a finishing job site, that you would be able to create the profile on the spot, harden it with the adhesive, put the paper on there, and go. So that would be a very nice one. It would have been exceptional when I had to do this by hand, but I did not have it. So Of course, like all Fest tools, it has a dust collection port on the end. This one works with the regular D27 tool hose. Much like the RT or DTS 400, you're going to want the dust collection down low for this sander. You don't want the vacuum on full blast. You want it more towards the turtle side than the hair side, simply because it's just not moving. You don't need a lot of dust flow or airflow to get rid of the dust. And if you have too much airflow, you're going to get some jitters, and you're actually at the point where you're trying to put on the smoothest finish possible. So it's a nice little sander, very, very light, easy to use, and it's got a little bit of a lock here, so if you're doing long sessions, well, it's nice that you don't have to even squeeze the button, just push it around. And it'll help you get that fine finish done on rails and stiles in linear mode.